President Dwight Eisenhower said that the American mind at its best is both liberal and conservative. So there are forces in this country who have created this drama, which is really a fiction, that left and right are these polar opposites that have to see each other as the enemy. And that is an economic dichotomy. It's an economic dichotomy which has to do with the fact that over the last 48 years in this country, there has been a massive transfer of wealth. That's putting it nicely. There has been a theft. There has been a transfer of $50 trillion from the bottom 90% to the 1% of people in this country. And what that has done is turned us into this small group of economic royalists, as FDR called them, whose wealth creation is far too often at the expense of just the average American having any hope of getting into the game. This 1% has easy access to medical care. It has easy access to education, easy access to child care, easy access to staying home after the birth of a child, and easy access to, at the very least, a paid living, a livable wage, and much, much more. Policy after policy goes towards enabling a very small group of Americans not only to get rich, but to even get richer all the time. In a neoliberal economic system where the right of stockholders to make more money is placed above the rights of other stakeholders, whether it has to do with workers or community or environment, animals. I think the greatest collateral damage is America's children. Children are not old enough to vote, so they don't have a constituency. They're not old enough to work, so they don't represent any financial leverage. So people who are what you might call free market fundamentalists don't see any real function. For a child, they'll say things like, this country should be run like a business. No, it shouldn't be. It should be run, if anything, perhaps like a conscious business, but it should be run like a family. 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence established a document and the founding of a nation based on the idea that all men are created equal. But 41 of those 56 signers were slave owners. So that's the dichotomy. It's always been with us. And the glory and the tragedy of our country is that generations, every generation, including ours, reiterates that dynamic between those who are willing to go to whatever lengths necessary to expand the franchise and to actualize the principles on which we purport to stand, versus forces who, usually for their own economic purposes, usually very powerful, are willing to do whatever it takes to make sure we do not actualize those principles. But if you look at the history of our country over time, just as in your country, we have tended to self-correct. We answered slavery with abolition. We answered the institutionalized suppression of women with women's suffrage. We answered the Gilded Age with the New Deal. We answered segregation with civil rights. It's simply our turn. And it's time for our generation to realize that we have to repudiate what Thomas Jefferson called the general tendency of the rich to prey upon the poor, just as in other generations there have been forces preying upon the powerless and disadvantaged in their midst.
Hello, everybody. Hi. So good to be together. My life has been the process of rooting myself in a reality where these tiny little particles came together and brought forth galaxies and then a living planet and ourselves. We have discovered something huge about the universe that was not known to the fundamental geniuses that gave birth to the great philosophy and religion all around the planet. They simply didn't know that the universe as a whole is evolving. It's a change in our understanding that is way beyond Copernicus. Copernicus changed the Western world, certainly, and we're dealing with something that is so many times huger. I wanted to also, I think so many of us here are involved in this process of disconnecting ourselves from one particular view of the universe and of life and of humanity, disconnecting ourselves from the modern industrial view and attempting to root ourselves into the sacred development we find all around us. What I mean by rooting myself in this universe, it's to recognize that the universe itself is developing and is expressing an ultimate wisdom. And so our challenge is to articulate an ultimate wisdom. And just to leave you with one example of this, every second, the sun transforms 4 million tons of itself into light. Everything that has happened in human history happened powered by this sacrifice, a solar sacrifice of its body, given freely. And by participating in that, we have come alive. So that it's a kind of a cosmic generosity that makes things happen. And I think the big challenge for us now is, how do we become the human form of a cosmic generosity? It was something bigger than politics, bigger than science as knowledge. It is a recognition of being shaped by the universe. This process that we are in, of identifying the cosmological dimensions of our lives, one of the principal spiritual pathways of the 21st century. That's why the subtitle of the book is Unveiling the Expanding Universe. Right. We think of it, and scientifically, we think of it as, okay, the galaxies are expanding, when they stop there. No, our consciousness is expanding and deepening. As we come into a greater appreciation of our cosmological dimension, we discover that humans are in the process of developing patterns of action that will determine the planet's structures for the next million years. Now, in other words, we have to become sensitive enough to the dynamics in which we find ourselves to make decisions that are beneficial for the Earth community for 1 million years. I mean, this isn't something we learned in grade school or high school. We never thought about that. And the industrial society is focused on the next quarter's returns, So it's this, and the approach that I'm focused on working at Human Energy is this notion of the noosphere from Teilhard de Chardin. The noosphere as an interconnected network of thinking taking place around the planet. There's never been anything like this in the history of life, that a single planet, a single species that can think has in a certain sense enveloped the evolutionary process. The ultimate creativity manifests itself through relationship. And just to give you a couple images, the early universe, 14 billion years ago, consisted entirely of elementary particles, electrons, protons, neutrons, photons. That was it. And what happened is that the electrons and the protons, they started to deepen their relationship. And in that process, they gave birth to trillions of galaxies, huge structures. Now, these little tiny particles, simply by getting involved with one another, brought forth galaxies. Why do I repeat myself? Because I can't get over it. It's just so amazing. Now, jump ahead. Go to the early Earth. Life on Earth for 3 billion years was single-celled organisms. single-celled organisms. 3 billion years, I mean, they could have gone on forever, but what happened? They started to get involved with relationships with each other. That was it. They got involved with each other and they gave birth to whales and oak trees. And you think of these little cells, they didn't have any idea about an oak tree, but in the relationship, this ultimate creativity comes forth. Now, what needs to be emphasized, and this will be taught in every grade school sometime during the 21st century. What needs to be emphasized, go back to the elementary particles. No new elementary particles or anything else came in. The power was in the particles and the relationships. That's the manifestation of ultimacy. Same is true with the cells. It was just these little cells getting together, giving birth to whales. So here we are. We are deepening our relationships around the planet. We are connected up in new ways. The internet. We invented poetry. Poetry is a recent invention, but in all of these, we are deepening and complexifying our relationships. And out of those relationships, a new earth is coming forth. Here is a miracle that suffices for a lifetime of astonishment and reverence. This lava evolves into the orangutan. That is the creativity that pervaded molten rock. At the level of activity, we are this cosmic creativity. Every entity is. At the level of activity, when we become aware of it, when we know in our consciousness that that's who we are, that awareness accelerates the process. It doesn't create the fact that we are cosmic creativity. It accelerates our own involvement with it.
Today, what we have are economic principles that see people as data, see people as consumers, that have deviated so much from the humanitarian values of the Declaration of Independence. So what I want this campaign to magnify is the realignment of public policy with the principles of the Declaration of Independence. And the oppression of our time, the main tyranny of our time, is economic.
This is really hopefully the beginning of some real energy and enthusiasm and attention to this subject that probably most of you don't even know is in the air and don't even know that it is really a vital subject. I won't, say anything about it because that's what Rich's talk will be all about. But we're really trying to start something here. Very strangely, we're not talking about this subject. I'm Suzanne Taylor, and A World Without Work is a title that we've given to a series of programs about a really important topic that we aren't talking about. It's part of a series we're calling Sue Speaks, where Sue stands for Searching for Unity in Everything. And this topic actually will create a world, a much more cooperative world as we deal with it, because we have to deal with the fact that there aren't going to be enough jobs no matter what we do. We've called it World Without Work, which we rather like because of the WWW, but it's really a world without jobs. And as we look at this looming issue, well, we all have to look together for what kind of solution we'll make.
Do you know who's here today? Suzanne Taylor, because she made a documentary that I loved about crop circles. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean crop circles? Explain to the people in general what the crop circle is. What
That's crop circles.
This right here, I got crop circles everywhere.
I can't believe
I
it.
told you I'm your lady. I'm not one of those people who thinks it's fake. I think it's real. But tell everybody what this is.
Well, this is a phenomenon that really could change the world.
Right.
And it's not paid attention to because it's too important.
And it's ridiculed.
It's ridiculed, right.
Whenever I've talked about this to people, when I saw your documentary, I was like, we got to talk about this. But a lot of people go, what are you, nuts?
Well, I'll tell you, we don't have a celebrity. you can use a celebrity for things like this. There's nobody famous who's ever paid attention to them. And because they really can change the world, if we actually knew that we were being visited, and when you said, tell everybody, we're not making them. I mean, this is the size of 2 football fields.
Right.
I mean, picture that. It was 1991. The world was very excited. It was making headlines. And 2 guys, 2 farmers from England said, we made them all. And they got a press release into the world press. 2 farmers from England got a press release into the world press. But the minute the world thought, oh,
it's a hoax.
It's a hoax. It's too hard to really, because we're being visited.
Yeah.
There's other intelligence. It's the biggest story that would ever happen to humanity. And big stories like that, cultures resist change like that. They put Galileo under house arrest when he came out with a story as big as that. So ever since then, it's been a hard sell, although there's a rabid community of people who pay attention to it, who do research on it. There are lab reports that have gotten into peer-reviewed science journals that say there are changes to the plants, biological changes, chemical changes to the soil that we can't do.
How did you get interested in this phenomenon?
Well, I was always interested in consciousness and the fact that we had a very narrow view of reality. And when the human potential movement came along, I go way back, I just glommed onto it. We were learning much more about our inner life and, the bigger picture of reality. And I was producing projects that had to do with the transformation of consciousness, the waking up of humanity. And the crop circles came along just as another subject matter. I thought, oh, if we're not making those, that could change humanity quick, overnight.
Right.
Not self-development that takes a lifetime. So I got more and more involved and thought, well, how do you tell the world about something? You make movies. So I went out and I made movies. Doorways to Another Reality is my subject, not only crop circles, because I'm not just the crop circle lady, even though right now I am.
Right.
But I'm the lady of, hey, it's a bigger story.
Yeah.
And we need a bigger story. Look at how horrible the world is. We're destroying ourselves.
I agree.
Really.
We need a bigger story.
And to guide you on the road to the next reality, here's Suzanne Taylor.
Welcome back. This is part 2 of the Cosmic Fuel Pump. Oh, you weren't here for part 1? Well, it was a little local show. Maybe you didn't live in LA. Well, it was the early 80s, so maybe you weren't born yet? Well, whatever. That show was at Suzanne's restaurant. And it was not a food restaurant. It was a restaurant for food for thought. And here's what I was. I was your gourmet guru. I was your cosmic cheerleader. I was your whiz of is. Many wonderful titles I had. And, it made perfect sense to be at the restaurant because I actually wrote this cookbook. So, food cookbooks, and then me, who really is interested in changing the world. In those days, I was more interested in changing ourselves. It was the height of the human potential movement. And, we were all looking for who we were. In fact, this is a little sign that I used to use. Start a show like this and I go, hello, come out, wherever you are. And I would talk about what wants to come out is your spirit self. Well, we talked like that back then. But, we were learning. It was a new time. Well, this time, we're looking to change the world. What is this worldview that has us so violent, has us so greedy? And on the show, as we explore the patterns of thought that exist in our psyche, that gets us through the world that we have, there are patterns for how things change and where we are in the cycles of change, all to come. There are models for change. There are things that happened earlier that it would be good to know about them because we can replicate them now. We don't have any forces that are working to create this kind of system-wide change. A sea change is what we really need. We're ready for it. Well, we'll talk about all of that. I'll bring you some heroes, people who are inspirational for the world to come. And most of all, we'll talk about outside-the-box ideas. What haven't we thought of that really could make a difference? We're not having that conversation. There are a lot of possible things. I love the Margaret Mead quote. Everybody knows this quote. so well that I know it by heart. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
Life is in trouble. As a species, we are facing multiple crises that we can no longer ignore. At the root of them all is our economy. An economy designed to destroy life. An economy designed by us. Once upon a time, our ancestors acknowledged their intimate connection with the vast web of life. They lived in deep relationship with the more than human world, telling stories about nature as our family, our guardian, our guide. But then some of them imagined and created ways to control the natural world. This made them feel more powerful and superior to nature, separate from it. The more powerful they felt, the more disconnected from nature they became. And so they began to tell new stories. Stories that normalized domination, control, and the oppression of life.
Our technologies have given us, for the first time in the history of our species, the tools to think and act as a species. Take that in. It is the calling of callings to make that more vivid and tangible and real. Each of us starting inside ourselves and with the lives we've been given. And across my life of conversation, I have learned that wisdom and wholeness emerge in moments precisely like ours, though ours is writ large, where human beings have to hold seemingly opposing realities in a creative tension and interplay. Power and frailty, birth and death, pain and hope, mystery and conviction, brokenness and beauty, calm and fierceness, mine and yours. Let's begin. Thank you.
Democracy is coming to the USA.
Do people know that there was a huge controversy going on last year in the whole TED world? All of a sudden, TED pulled its parameters in about what was acceptable on the TED stage. And I had become a TED producer after I was a movie producer, thinking, now what's my next platform? And I had always produced events and projects that had to do with consciousness. Personal growth is what we called it years ago, and then it kind of morphed into the word consciousness became more prevalent in that whole self-awareness kind of movement. And then, in fact, I had kind of moved on from that into this interest in our worldview, which is what is, you might say, our collective consciousness. How do we all think as a world about what matters? And that we were so stuck in materialism and that greed was, ruling the day became the kind of focus that I paid attention to. And how could we move from this self-interest and self-absorption and greed and the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? And how could we move into a sense of mutuality, which we so desperately need for our survival? All of a sudden we're talking about survival of the species. So I was looking around after I produced these movies for what my next platform would be. Prior to that, I had done a lot of salon kind of stuff, a lot of stuff like this. Very wonderful people have graced this living room, even though you might think, oh, crop circles, UFOs, weird, trippy. The truth is that when I found out about this crop circle phenomenon, which is years ago now, back in the late 80s, they said they were landing pads for UFOs in England. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't know much about UFOs. I'm, some guy in a diner about UFOs. They were no great interest to me. They come, they go, who knows? But these things don't come and go, they stay. And if, in fact, this is going to prove the UFO phenomenon, if there is other intelligence in the universe, and it's not just science fiction, but it's actually fact, that will change consciousness. I hope I can do justice to giving Brian this platform to tune everyone into how incredibly revolutionary his perspective is. This wonderful book, Cosmogenesis, is like a sister book to Universe is a Green Dragon. When I got that book, I closed myself in my room and I shut the door and I read it straight through. You know, Brian is to Thomas Berry, who turned out to be his real connection to the depth of it all. Brian is to Thomas Berry as I am to Brian. When Brian came along, that became my world. And it's been decades.
It just is such an important task to bring thought leaders together. Everybody here has put in decades of reflection, and we can't we can't really diverge off from our pathways, but by being together and reflecting on some of these questions together, each of us, I believe, will find inspiration for our own path. To think of a human being as a thing that the universe is doing, that really helped me. That each of us is this thing that the universe is doing. So, by which I mean that everything about me, the way I breathe, that it came from the fish. The way my brain electricity came from the primate nervous systems, and so forth and so on. So that each of us is simultaneously a unique individual and the whole universe. The real challenge for us is to go from the knowledge to the experience, to experience ourselves as the entire universe in the form of a human.
All I ever wanted to be was an actress. I was very, very successful making commercials. As an actress, you learn to look inside yourself. So, the 60s was the start of introspection, self-awareness. I started looking around for how could I serve the world.
Don't you think we need more of an understanding of what we're all doing here? The reasons, why are we alive?
Hi there, I'm Suzanne, and welcome to the Cosmic Fuel Pump. Hi there, I'm Suzanne. Hi, I'm Suzanne. Hi there, I'm Suzanne, and welcome to the Cosmic Fuel Pump. Come on, pull in, fuel up. The gourmet guru is dispensing delicious fill-ups. Food for your soul.
When we talk about getting inside this intelligence, do you think that eventually maybe we will get to a place, we'll raise our consciousness where we will get into the intelligence on a collective level?
Please God, so to speak. Yeah. Well, that, you can also see there's a progression that's gone on. These times that we're in are so unbelievable. And yet, if you look at the progress of humanity, we're getting smarter all the time. And some of the ways we get smarter is we get stupid, and then we have to redirect, and it impels us to get smarter again. And now we're in the biggest redirect ever, where we're so capable of destroying ourselves, as technologically in the past was not the case. So this is maybe the biggest challenge ever that humanity has faced. But over the years, we went to civil war over, the humanity and what we're all about. And if you do look back, even in my lifetime, women's lib, I would not be sitting here if it hadn't been for women's lib. I was Mrs. Him for a long time. And, ever since I'm not Mrs. Him, I become me. So we keep moving forward. The trajectory is forward, even though it's backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, but it's a spiral, it goes up and up or forward and forward. And, here we are at the biggest crunch point ever, but we've been at crunch points before, and each crunch point is a question. Are we going to surpass the situation, transcend the situation that's challenging us, or are we going to sink? It's always sink or swim, and each time we've come back and swam. So here we are again. But this is the most serious ever, and maybe it will propel us into the most evolved ever, because what we do have to do elementally is come out of separation, which is the material world, get the most for yourself, into union, into understanding we are one humanity, and you do to yourself as you do to somebody else, or vice versa. Yeah. We're all interconnected, and if we got it, really, really got it, we would do everything to make life wonderful for everybody. Big shift on the cusp.
At the time that I was writing guidelines for the Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, in 1961, for the annual operational war plans of the United States, general nuclear war plans. At that point, the plan I was supplanting or modifying was the last plan left by the Eisenhower administration. His plan was simply to strike first in nuclear terms against the Soviet Union and China. The Joint Chiefs of Staff estimated in 1961 that the effects of our carrying out those plans, the Eisenhower plan, which was not a hypothetical plan for 10 years in the future or something. It was the annual operational plan for which the weapons existed and were on alert. They estimated it would kill 600 million people, 100 holocausts, 325 million in the Soviet Union and China alone, another 100 million in the satellite countries, the so-called captive nations, as Eisenhower called them, Hungary, Poland, the Warsaw Pact. Another 100 million of our allies in West Europe would be killed by the fallout from our attacks on the Soviet bloc. Without a single warhead of ours falling on West Europe, fallout from our attacks in the Soviet bloc would annihilate our NATO allies. Collateral damage. Not desired, inadvertent, but expected. No way to avoid it. Now, when I saw that estimate in the White House, I thought that was the most evil planning that had ever existed in the history of humanity.
There's never been a time. There's never been a time. There's never been a time as fucked up as this. As fucked up as this. I didn't fuck it up. Didn't fuck it up, but they, whoever they are, they fucked it up. Now it's fucked up. I can't unfuck it up. You probably can't unfuck it up. And if we're counting on them to unfuck it up, then we're all fucked. Okay, now here's where you come in. You don't have to sing, just turn to the person next to you and ask them nicely, did you fuck it up? Go on, ask them. How about you? Did you fuck it up? Now sit back and look at them and say, 'cause you look like someone who could have fucked it up. Now it's fucked up. Now let's pick ourselves up off the floor and create a tone of camaraderie and ask, could you help unfuck it up? And then say, are you really so fucking busy you can't take one fucking minute to help unfuck it up? Then lose the righteous asshole attitude and take a breath and say, because I'm willing to pick one thing to help unfuck it up. Won't you join me? Oh, that's better. Doesn't it feel better? Yeah, I'm feeling the love. The problem is that you just can't help feeling bitter that it's fucked up to begin with. You just go round and round like this. Okay, back with me now. I didn't fuck it up. Let it out. Come on. You know you feel it. You probably didn't fuck it up. You don't have to believe it. Just go with it for now. But that's right, shift the blame. They fucked it up. Now it's fucked up. That's right. Okay. Yeah, you're clapping, but the problem is deep down inside, you're feeling depressed and hopeless, right? You're just gonna change the world. What the hell happened? Okay, I got it. We're gonna come together for this one. I need your help. We're gonna fill this room up with love and inspiration, and it won't last past the time you leave here tonight, but everybody on this side, let's all unfuck it up. Okay, real loud and proud, let's all unfuck it up. Now you gotta keep going without me when I leave you. Here we go. Let's all unfuck it up. Doesn't that feel good? Keep it rolling. Now over here, we have a special part. It's a little repetitive, but it's fucked, 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 it's fucked. Can you do that? It's fucked, it's fucked. Okay, middle, ready? I wanna be an unfucker. I wanna be an unfucker. That's right, it's fucked, it's fucked, it's fucked, it's fucked, it's fucked. Oh, yeah, really loud. One more time with all your heart.